on this point, for me the economics of independence are exceptionally important, and I've got no doubt at all that we can be a wealthy country. Don't get me wrong, I think you absolutely understand this. An independent Scotland is going to suffer the same challenges many other independent nations do. Just because we've got independence doesn't mean that it's going to be a land of milk and honey and the manna will fall from the sky. There will be challenges, of course there will be. But the whole point is when we face those global shocks, that we have the economic levers, the financial, the fiscal, the monetary levers in our hand to be able to respond to that. But what else is important? It's a really great question. Economics is really important. I think showing leadership, I think morality is really important. And that means whether it's domestic issues, such as ensuring that we eradicate poverty, that being the drive, the focus of the government. And I'm unapologetic about talking about redistribution in terms of our wealth. We are not a poor country. In fact, if you look at the graphs from the Financial Times as one example, you'll see that the gap between the richest and poorest in the UK far wider than many of our European neighbours. It's just that the wealth is concentrated in the hands of a very, very few. So we have to make sure we are unapologetic about talking about that. So economics is important. Being a compassionate country domestically, internationally too. Internationally too. What we can do, as I've already said, around migration, around refugee rights, around international development, climate change, of course, and climate emergency and responding to it. These things are important to me. Ultimately, at the heart of it, what is important to me? I say this as a father of two girls, that ultimately I want to ensure that my children, selfishly even being, I want to make sure that we have the power in our own hands to make decisions that are best for our country. That's not as an isolationist, protectionist country, but as an outward-looking country. What are our interests? What global leadership can we show in the interest of the common good in the world? I think if we can articulate that, I think it's a really compelling vision. At a time when people are screaming for vision, for hope, for leadership, we can provide that as a party, as opposed to what you're getting with Keir Starmer triangulating with every Conservative policy, the branch office manager, Anna Sawar, literally, I don't know if you saw the video when Keir Starmer was up and they were asked about a two-term limit. He literally kept looking at him to make sure that he wasn't saying anything that Keir Starmer would be upset. The body language was literally like a child looking for permission from their parent. So we've got the vision, which they sorely lack. To the question at the front, I think that's why the legal route, remember, still remains our plan A. We've never shifted our plan A. Our plan A, we've never shifted. The UK government has denied us democracy time and time again. We've never shifted it. Our plan has always said we want a legally binding referendum, which both sides who diametrically are opposed on the issue of the Constitution can get together and agree that whatever the result is, that legally we respect that result. And that's why that agreement is the Edinburgh Agreement as it was in the run-up to 2014. That's why that agreement is absolutely important, because if there is any attempt to kind of wriggle or roll back from that or withdraw from that, then there would be consequences, because that would be a legally binding agreement. The question about the disinformation, as Mel asked about disinformation unit, I have been doing a fair bit of work on this over the course of the summer. We've got a fantastic team at headquarters, particularly a good digital team at headquarters, and there is a lot of work being done on the disinformation unit and the rebuttal unit, so combating disinformation, I should say, unit and rebuttal unit. If we spent all of our time rebutting every single piece of disinformation, there's nothing else we would do, thankless party and as a government. So we're going to have a vehicle whereby our membership are able to send in, look, we've seen this bit of disinformation, how can we counter it? And we'll see what we can do to try to counter it. But we'll also be quite select at those kind of lies that end up becoming, that get wide coverage, and how do we make sure that before they even get the chance to spread, how do we make sure that we're countering them with the truth, with the facts, with the reality of the situation. So absolutely right, you've heard right, we're ready to go in autumn. You will have seen, many of you, the new chief exec of the party is Murray Foote. Murray Foote, somebody who gets the media inside out, being part of the media over many years, and he and I have had an early conversation, and he agrees entirely that one of the priorities for him and headquarters is getting that unit, the rebuttal unit, as it will be called, up and running. Some of it will be through social media. We'll do what we can around, of course, traditional media. We'll engage, and I'll continue to engage, I've met with most of our traditional media, not all of them yet, but most of our traditional media, in order to try to see if we can do what we can to further that relationship. For me, the other thing I would say is, in an environment where there are a number of outlets in our media that are pretty hostile and very openly to the SNP, well, how can we get better at generating our own content? And so there's a lot of work going into generating in the future our own content and getting it directly to people, as opposed to them having to read about it through traditional media. So yeah, we've got a lot of plans in that space. Can I take maybe